Hello everyone, I hope you're well. Welcome to my YouTube channel on Friday. I hope you're all looking forward to the weekend. Again, I didn't realise it was a bank holiday, but there you go. So following on from yesterday's video where I created a Thrinchy, and I created a Thrinchy using the Butalon stamp. So I thought I would take inspiration from that and create a card. So what I'm going to do is I've got my Pink Frog Super Smooth card, 4 inches by 6 inches, and I've got the matte black pieces that coordinate beautifully with those white. And then I've got a 5 by 7 card blank. So I've got all those ready and we're going to work on here. And what I'm going to do is sort of use the circular template I used yesterday, and I'm going to use a bigger circle. So it's about 3 1/4 or 3 3/4. It doesn't matter. You can draw around anything you wish. And then I'm going to take my distress pencils again, set 6 and set 4, and I'm going to take, what purple have I got? Wilted Violet. And what's this one? Dusty Concord. So sort of 2 purpley colours. And I'm just going to use, which looks the darkest from there, maybe Dusty Concord. So I'm just going to draw around my circle with the Dusty Concord. So I'm just going to go round just with the Dusty Concord. You can use your watercolour card if you wish, whichever you want to use. So I've got the Dusty Concord on there, and I'm going to just add a little bit of the Dusty Concord colour with the Distress watercolour pencils. They're woodless, so I'm just going to add a little bit of this colour. So it's great because it just shows that even when you do a Thrinchy, you can be inspired by your own Thrinchies. I'm then going to use Wilted Violet and come in with the Wilted Violet. Come into the previous colour as well. So I'm just using a circular motion just to lay that pigment down. And you can see it's not exactly smooth. So let's grab a brush. And which one do we want to use? I have this debate with myself every single time. So I'm presuming that this won't be clean. No, it's cleanish. Let's grab some kitchen roll that I had yesterday. Have a little bit more water. There we go. I'm just going to pick up my water. And I've got quite a bit of water on there just to move that pigment. So we can just get rid of any lines or anything. And if you want it nice and pastel, you can leave it as it is in a beautiful pastel colour. You know that that's not what I'm going to do. Of course you do. Okay, so I'm going to pick up a little bit more water. And then I'm going to pick up, which for me is the darkest colour, is Dusty Concord. And like we did yesterday with the Thrinchy, I'm going to come in and add a little bit more pigment. Now what you can see is when I'm adding this pigment, there's a little bit of difference. You can see that I'm layering that pigment down. And you'll notice I didn't dry this, but I want you to see when I layer it down when I don't dry it. So then I'll take the wilted violet and we'll lay this down. Let's grab a little bit more of the wilted violet. And you can see, yes, I've got some of that pigment layering down. But that is beautifully pastel, and I've got a nice blend on there, but I haven't got any depth. So let me grab my heat tool. And I'm going to give this a little bit of a dry. So let's give this a dry. Let's just turn that over. There we go. So I've given that a little bit of a dry. I've not gone mad with the drying, I've just given it a little bit of a dry. I'm turning it this way because it's just a little bit easier. So we'll take the Dusty Concord from sets 4 and 6. And then when you come on now, look how the layering and the depth of colour works, because I've dried the first initial layer and I'm not working into that wet layer. I'm adding another layer on the top. And that pink frog allows me to move that colour. So that's the Dusty Concord. And then I'm going to pick up the wilted violet. It is wilted, yeah. I question myself. Now you can see how that layers up. It just layers beautifully. And I can go on direct onto the pencil because it's woodless. I'm not going to affect any of the moisture going up there and ruining the pencil because it is woodless, and the moisture won't affect anything. So take a little bit more water and then I can just blend that out just so it's nice and soft. Look at that. Doesn't it look lovely? Do you know, I could play forever. So just give that another waft dry. And it's a waft, it's nothing over the top. So I'll go back to that Dusty Concord because I'm having too much fun. You can leave it at any level you wish, whichever level works for you. So I'm going to bring it a little bit further up. And I'm only using a little bit of water. There we go. Let's just... Then I'll come in with the wilted violet. Come in with the wilted violet. And I would say that this needs to be a little bit drier. So let's dry that a little bit more. You can tell if it needs to be a little bit drier because of the way the colours layer. So again, and you can see all the pigment that is in the water. So I'll pick up that Dusty Concord and go back in. I can tell the difference when I've dried it, the way the colour layers. So you can just tell, because you do get that layer of colour rather than it sort of all merging. There we go. So we'll pick up a little bit more water and then we'll go to our wilted violet and come in with the wilted violet. And I can just see the difference, the way that layers on the top. And again, I'm just using a little bit of water. I'm not going in with stacks of water. And again, you can tell when you haven't quite got enough water because it doesn't move and it doesn't blend. So you can tell, you get used to working with your product. So let's grab a little bit more water now, just to blend the edges out, just so it looks a bit more softer. Just so you can see, it just blends out beautifully, just beautifully. And you can still come in with more water and you can just soften your edges a little bit more. Entirely up to you how far you want to bring that up, and we can still add more if we wish. So let's just move that out of the way. I'm then going to grab the Butylon stamp, the little stamp we used here. Let's take that. These were the things I was on about, you know, the suckers. I was thinking it's supposed to stick on. Oh, there you go, it sticks on now. I was thinking I can hold things. Oh no, I can't get it off now. I can hold things. Right. Let's take my Butylon and I'm going to stamp this in green. And I'm going to use a little bit of Verdant. So let's just add a little bit of Verdant. And then I'm going to use Shady Lane. Just remove that little bit of over inking. And then I want to add Shady Lane. So then I'm going to decide, which will take me forever, where I want to add my little Butylons. There we go. I just love them in the green. So I'm going to use the Verdant again, the paler colour, and then I'm going to take Shady Lane. So it's entirely up to you how you add your little Butylons. There we go. So all inspired by yesterday's video. So again, with the Verdant, little bit of Shady Lane, I'm going to add this here, like so. So I've got my 3 sort of abutilons round there, and then I'm going to use the fern stamp. So I'm going to use TE3. So let's use TE3, and we're going to use that little fern again. So I'll just grab another acrylic block like I do. There we go, slightly curved the fern, and again I'm using the verdant and then some of that shady lane, and then I'm going to add the fern, just going around, so I can also add a little bit. Do I want the second? No, I was going to use second generation, but I don't want that at the moment. So let's have the verdant again, then a little bit of the shady lane. So just adding some of the fern around the outside edge. Just so that abutilon has got something that it's hanging from. What I'm going to do then is I'm going to clean my stamp, which I rarely do, just so it's clear of ink. Just give that a little bit of a dry. Take that off there so that it's straight again. Then I'm going to take the verdant, but I'm only going to sort of ink a little bit of the fern. I'm not going to add the whole fern. And then I'm going to have some first and second generation. So I'm just adding part of the fern, so it looks like a little tiny fern with the shady lane and the verdant, just so that it looks a little bit more natural. So let's take the verdant again and the shady lane, and let's bring some down here. First generation, second generation, just to make it a little bit more natural and give it a little bit of a fuller feel. So just bringing some of that foliage, just the edge, first generation, just the edge of the fern, just so that it's a little bit fuller. So I'm sort of inking just the top little bit of that fern. So then I can just sort of add to the original fern that's there, just making it a little bit thicker, just so it's bushier and looks a little bit more natural. And you can continue with that until you're happy with the way it looks. Let's have some going that way. First generation, second generation. You can even see if there's third generation. Just makes it a little bit fuller on there and looks, you know, more appealing for me. Let's add, you can just add the verdant if you wish. You don't have to add the darker colour if you don't wish. just makes that a little fuller and a little bit more appealing. You could quite easily turn this into a bauble, no problem at all. It's entirely up to you. We can then come in and just add our Inktense pencil, which this is grey, it's called Chinese ink. If you don't have the Chinese ink, then use your pencils or use Distress Oxide inks, whichever. Now I've got purple on this brush, so let's just give this a little bit of a clean. May have even cleaned it a little bit. Miracles. So I'm just going to touch that Inktense pencil. And because you've got that lovely quality card, it's doing the job I want it to do by blending that Inktense pencil out. It's up to you. If you want it a lot darker, you can come in again, and because that's wet, the pigment is going to be a little bit darker. So it's entirely up to you. I always say go in gentle first, because you can always add more. You can't take it away. Although with the water reactive, you can take it away to some degree. Especially if it's the oxides, because you can just wet it and then dab. There we go. Lovely. Just so you can see that. So let's just give those a little bit of a clean. And then in our pens, what colour are you? I've got Bundled Sage. And I have Shabby Shutters. So I can use these just to add a little bit more colour should I wish. And this won't affect the permanent inks because they're permanent, they dry, and once they're permanent there's no moving them with the water. So we're okay. So just come in with the Shabby Shutters. Come in with the Shabby Shutters. There we go. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my water straight away this time. And I'm going to pick up a little bit of the Bundled Sage. And just pick up a little bit of that colour. Just come in a little bit darker on that edge. So I'm going to do all three, just a little bit with that Bundled Sage, which for me is that darker colour. Lovely. Then I'm just going to, wow, that's nice and rich. I'm then going to add a little bit more water, take a little bit off, and then I'm going to come to the Shabby Shutters. And then I'm going to come in with that Shabby Shutters and go into my previous colour. There we go. So come into my previous colour, just a little bit more water, then come in. Oh, I'm liking the greens, and then I can just, let's grab some kitchen roll just to clean that up, and then we can just blend the edges out. And I don't have to add too much colour with this. Just blend that out. But what I do need to do is just give that a dry. Let's turn it over just to give it a little dry. There we go. So this is what we've got. There you go, you can see that. And then I'm going to add a little bit of text. So I'm going to use TE11. So let's just put that fern back. Then I'm going to take TE11, background elements. I'm going to take my shady lane. Let's add a little bit of text. I do love a little bit of text. There's just something about a little bit of text. Let's add a little bit more. It just sort of adds something to that. But you could quite easily dangle this, and it could quite easily be a bauble. I'm then going to grab, which one do I want now? Is it TE32? And where did you put that, Tracy? Because I've had a change around, I can't remember where everything is. So I'm then going to use my pheasants from TE32. Let me just, you see, when I pick a stamp out and then something else crosses my mind. So I'm going to use the little sort of rectangle from TE32. And Tracy puts the acrylic block down, and I'm going to use that rectangle from TE32. And then I'm going to use Shady Lane. And that isn't straight. That will irritate me. I've got a lined glass mat. You could place your stamps up on the glass mat and line that up quite easily. So I'm then going to add this here. Like so. So I've got that in the green. Which one do I want? I think it's that one. I'm then going to take the pheasant from TE32, and I want the black ink pad. I'm going to take the black ink. So I'm taking my Nocturne ink. Just make sure you don't ink that over your project, because you know what will happen. Make sure your stamp's going to stay on there. And then I'm just going to add my pheasant on there. So the pheasant is from TE32. I just love that. Absolutely love it. Obviously we've got to add touches of white, etc. So I've got my little pheasant. So now, do you know, I'm enjoying myself too much. Let's just place that down there. Now I want a word, and I can see where I've got the distress here. I wonder if I can show you. Can you see there? Oh, come on, camera. There. It's wet because you've gone on top of the oxide. The pencil. So just give that a dry. It's only because you've gone on top of that surface that's no longer absorbent. So just give that a dry. just so that you don't smudge that. It's worth taking those extra couple of minutes just to dry or blot. And then which one's got the word? There you go. On TE45, I've got the word nature, so I can use that. Just sort of delve into your stamp collections that you've got. That one has been used too much and therefore it's falling off. So let's grab nature. There we go. So I'm going to use Shady Lane because I want that to stand out in the black. So I'm going to use Shady Lane for my text. Which is the dark green colour. There we go. And then let's place you there. I'm going to add a little bit of colour to the nature box, and I'm going to use the two purples, which is Dusty Concord and Wilted Violet, and I'm going to just add a little bit of the Dusty Concord and the Wilted Violet. Just an initial layer of colour. Take off the excess, and I'm just going to blend that out. And it's very soft as it was before, so I'm going to come in with the Dusty Concord, but I'm just going to dry that a little bit, just so we can layer some of that colour on there, just like we did before. Just adding that colour on there. Then I'm going to take my little bit of water and take the Wilted Violet. Just come in with the Wilted Violet. I just lose myself, and it's just wonderful. There we go. I just need that touch of colour in there. Then we want to add a little bit of shading just under here. So let's grab a little bit of water again. I have got a piece of kitchen roll on the side just so I can dab off should I need to. So just blend that out. Just so that you've got that all blended out. And then we'll just give that another little dry, just because I want to add the touches of white. There we go. So let's grab that Posca pen. And I'm going to sort of just come in. Where's my pen? These are the backgrounds from the other day, so we'll just draw on the back so that we don't affect anything, because I will use those as well. So initially you think that the white isn't making much difference, but it really sort of does add little touches. Just add a little bit of lightness and brightness. Even if it's only subtle touches, it works. So it is definitely worth that. So unfortunately I spend ages just adding those touches of white. I love adding the touches of white. You can add a few touches to your fern as well. Don't have to be too regimented about it all, but just adding a little touch of white just helps to make things just pop a little bit more. So just adding touches of the white. You can also add some more shading. So let's just add a little bit under the peacock. I always think the little touches just finish everything off beautifully. Just a little bit of shading there. Let's add, look how small my pencil is. Let's add a little bit of shading just under, and I can just touch that with my brush, just a little bit of moisture, just so that we don't affect that purple too much. I'm okay here because there's not much of that distress pencil. So just adding a little bit of the shading. I could spend ages doing the finishing touches, but that's me all over. Just to give it a little bit more depth. And then I go back and add those white touches again. Just to bring out a little bit more of the detail. And again, it's just adding those layers just to bring that in. And then we'll add our splatters of white. So got some lovely splatters on there, which you can give those a dry so that they don't react too much with that distress watercolour. There we go, let's turn that over. And also then it means that when you're trying to adhere that like I normally do, you're not dipping your hand into any wet pigment. I'm then going to add this to a black mat, which will just make everything pop. Bring my adhesive. I need to fill and the reason I add a little bit more of adhesive is just because you've got that bend in that card. So I'm just, because of that, I'm being mindful that I add enough adhesive. And the warmth from my finger will just make sure that adheres. Don't forget to just press in the middle as well, just so that you don't get no bubbles, you know, so you've got like a pocket at the back. There we go. So it just looks so much more professional when it's matte and layered. I'm going to add that to a 5x7 card blank. Make sure it is opening the right way, like so. And this is how the Thrunchies can inspire you if you want to make a card with similar ideas that you've used in the Thrunchies. There we go. Let's just clear that of any dried up adhesive. Now I'm making a meal of that. Oh, come on, what are you doing? There we go. And then we've got a lovely, simple card, really easy to create, so you can see that. So I hope you enjoyed that little video and you'll give that a go. Love to all, and I'll see you all soon. Bye for now.